In today's video, I'll be taking a look at version 3 of Ample Sound's electric guitars, and I have some licenses to give away. Woohoo! Hi folks, I'm Mike and I hope you're well. So Ample Sound have released version 3 of their electric guitar VSTs, and I was lucky enough to get pre-release versions of all 6. Not only that, but I've got 3 full licenses to give away to you guys. So stick around to the end of the video so you can see how you can get your hands on one of those free licenses. Now, if this is your first time here and you like this kind of content, all about home recording, DAWs, plug-in reviews, gear reviews, that kind of thing, then please do subscribe and ring the bell on YouTube so that you get notified about my future videos. Now, let's take a look at those guitars. So I'd like to quickly just talk about the format of this video because it's a little bit different to what I normally do, and I just want you guys to understand what's going on. So I've got 6 guitars to look at all in all, and I've made 6 different demos to kind of demonstrate the particular style and sound of those guitars. Now, all of these guitars have an awful lot in common in terms of features and the way they're presented within the plugin. So as I'm talking about each guitar, I'm going to talk about one particular aspect of those features and UI, but they are common across all of the guitars. So I encourage you to watch the video all the way through so that you can get to hear about all the different aspects of these plugins. So with that said, let's get started with the guitar that you can see on the screen right now. Of course, this is based upon the Fender Stratocaster, arguably the most famous of all electric guitars. Now, the most important thing about an electric guitar or any guitar is its sound. So I just want to start off by actually playing you the demo that I've put together for this guitar. Now, I must stress that the guitar actually has a lot of variation in sound, as does the real world guitar, from really great clean sounds to good hard overdriven rock sounds all the way through. So I'm only really demoing a kind of a fairly mellow rock sound here. Enough of my blabbing, let's have a listen to the piece of music I've put together for this guitar. So there is the first demo, a couple of different sounds going on there in both the kind of rhythm part and the lead part, and there's lots and lots of variation in sound, as I say, and it starts off with the main interface. You can see the guitar here, and one of the things you can see right in the middle there is the actual hand position, the current place where the guitar is being played. Now, for those of you who don't play guitar, this is a really important part of the feature set because as we play different notes on the guitar, they have a different sound in different parts of the guitar. Now, it's important to understand that you can play the same note on different strings in different places, so you'll get a different sound for each version of that note. So we can change the fret position, and it's indicated there, as you can see right in the middle, where it's currently playing, which is a nice bit of visual feedback. I'll talk about how we change that in just a moment. Then in the middle of the guitar here, or in the middle of the interface here, you can see kind of mixer controls here. You can mix the sort of DI sound with the stereo master. You've got a pan there. Over this side, you've got a little mixer for the different effects, and the effects are very important on these guitars. There's all sort of little finger scrapes and some really nice sounds, particularly when you take your fingers off of the strings, which you use the mixer to control here. Also in the middle here, you can see this doubler control. Now this is really, really key for guitar sounds in sort of modern recordings. Basically what this emulates is what we do in the real world when we record a guitar. We often record one performance for the left speaker and another performance for the right speaker. And when we play them both together, you get a really, really nice wide sound. So the doubler kind of emulates that effect. Now you don't always want to have that effect, of course. Sometimes it's nice to have a really raw sounding and centered guitar. So, use this sparingly, I would say, or use it when it's actually needed, just not all the time. But it's tempting because it does sound very, very good. Now, most importantly, right at the bottom, you can actually see the keyboard here. Now, a quick note, you can change the look of this keyboard. I'm using a sort of a traditional controller keyboard look here, but if you go up to the settings, I'll just quickly change over to a different one. You can see this is called the flat keyboard there, and then there's the C-board keys as well. So as we go through the different demos of these guitars, you'll see these keyboards in various different states, but normally, personally, I like to use this controller keyboard. Now, if you've never used key switches before, then this is a really good place to start because Amplisound do a very, very good job of this. What key switches do is they change the sound of the instrument normally in some way, or they change the way it's being played. So typically on guitars, you're going to have key switches to enact things like a muted sound or a slide-in sound or a hammer-on sound. And of course, these are the kind of things which really give a lot of expression to the sound of a guitar. Now, if you're a keyboard player and you don't know much about guitars, I highly encourage looking at a video I've already made about this. It was using acoustic guitars, but a lot of it still applies. So I'll put a link up above here somewhere so you can kind of start to understand how guitars are expressive in different ways to other instruments. So these key switches control all of that, and if you hover over them for a moment, they will actually give you instructions on how to use them. It's very useful indeed. Some people are very good and adept at using these actually live. I'm not one of those people because my keyboard playing skills are ordinary at best, so I tend to do it in a programmed way. In other words, I do it on the piano roll. Sometimes I do little bits of it live. Now at the other end of the keyboard, you can see some more colored keys here. And that's where you can play different effects. You can hear some scratchy sounds there and little clicks. And different sort of things, again, to control the legato there and switch to different modes. And we'll talk about some of the different modes a little bit later. So that's the basic overview of how the front page of all of these guitars work. They all have that in common. They've all got key switches. Some of them are a little bit different to others, but you get the idea once you've learned one of these guitars. So let's move on to the next guitar. So next up we have a plugin based upon the Fender Telecaster, another very versatile guitar used in lots of different genres, but I've chosen to make something just a little bit funky in terms of the rhythm guitar section, and I've used a rather overdriven sound on the lead guitar. So let's have a listen to this guitar. Okay, so a nice sort of clean sound to that funky guitar there. This would be my choice of the plugins for that kind of style of guitar playing, I'd have to say. Now, talking about strumming, I'd like to talk about the strummer feature in these plugins. You can find it just here with this little plectrum icon. I'll click on that. And as I say, this is common across all of these Amplisound version 3 plugins. And what the strummer does is it enables you to sort of automate the strumming of a guitar, particularly when you've got fairly repetitive strumming, and you can really just end up playing it with kind of 1 or 2 fingers. So let's have a look and see how that works. And I'll quickly just switch on the strummer down here, and I'm just going to play a strumming pattern on a C chord. And I'll move to an F. And if I move to the keyboard view there, you'll see that I'm just doing all of that with a couple of fingers. So over here we select the actual chord that we're playing, and then we've got a choice of different patterns that we can play with our other finger. So that makes it really, really easy to put together rhythm guitar parts. There's lots of features in this. I won't go into all of them, but I'll just talk about a couple of my favorite ones. So you've got a lot of different selections of different chords that you can use within any particular piece. And I've got selected this 13th chord here. That's the 13th chord in my group of patterns, or my group of chords, I should say. And I'm going to choose a different variation on this chord. It's being played as a second inversion, or in the second position. I'll change it to the first position here. Okay, that's okay, not bad. Let's try it in the third position, or the third inversion. Okay, so you can hear some differences there. So you can select where each of the chords will be played, and indeed what chord is associated with each key. Now, the other thing you could do is not just change, the fact that it's a C major chord there, but I can actually individually change particular notes. So if I don't want a particular note to be played, I can just get rid of it there. I'll get rid of that one too. So you've got a lot of variation there. I could even change that. Let's go to the second inversion. I'll just change it to a 7th chord by selecting a different note on the fretboard here. Or if you don't know your notes on a guitar fretboard, you can actually just select the variation on the chords here. So it's very, very easy to put together strumming patterns, and it means that you can just have very, very simple MIDI information going on in your DAW as well. Okay, so hold on to your hats because things are about to get an awful lot rockier. What you see on the screen here is a plugin based upon the Gibson Les Paul, a guitar renowned for its gritty rock sound. So that's the kind of piece I've chosen to put together for you guys today. So let's have a listen to this guitar. Felt good. Now, one of the most anticipated features of these new version 3 plugins from Amplisound is the amp sims. We had it with the bass guitar series already, but lots of people have been waiting for it to come out on the guitars, and it is here, of course. So let's take a look at that section now. I'll flick over there. So we start off with a selection of amp heads, and they all have different characteristics and some slightly different controls, and they're all aimed at a different kind of a genre of music. Obviously, this one is a very heavy metal kind of sounding amp, and you've got some various different sounds going through there. What I do like about this is you're not overwhelmed by a selection of sort of 20 or 30 different amps, and too many choices can get in the way, if I'm honest. It's nice to have a nice wide selection in terms of different styles, but not in terms of actual volume of or numbers of actual amps available. Now, the next thing they give you is some variations on the cabinets as well. So I'll flick through those there. Again, not lots and lots of cabinets, but pretty much everything you're going to need to get lots of variation in sound. So you can mix up the heads with the different cabinets, and then you can also mix up different microphones. You have a couple of microphones on the amp there, and you can see that there's a selection of some fairly famous microphones included there, which you can pan and change the level of. You can also mix in some room ambience here. You can choose how much level you have from the DI, and then you can mix in the actual amp itself. Without going into too much detail, lots and lots of variation in sound, but not too many choices as to confuse you, which is what I really like about this. So a really big well done to Amplisound on this particular feature. I'm loving it. Now, next up we have a plugin based upon the Gibson ES-335, another very versatile guitar, but particularly well known for your kind of jazzy and bluesy types of tones. And it's that kind of demo that I've tried to put together for you guys today, although it's not really my genre of music, so I hope you'll forgive me in advance. But hopefully it will give you an idea about how this guitar sounds in that style of music. I feel like I should say that at the end of a piece of music like that. So one of the challenges of actually creating a piece of music like that, particularly if you're not a great keyboard player like me, you spend a lot of time actually in there editing on the piano roll in your DAW, moving notes around, making sure that keystrokes, that key switches are in place for things like slides, hammer-ons, that kind of thing. And that can be quite a challenge. So what I like is that Amplisound have given you some alternatives to doing it in that way. And one of those alternatives is with something called the Riffer. And now I'll just switch over to the Riffer here. Now this is a feature that I don't use an awful lot, but I know people absolutely love this feature and they get really into it. Now it's fairly simple and straightforward in its approach. Each of these lines here first of all represents a string on the guitar, and then you can see some notes here. You've got different notes and then a duration. So it's a little bit like a piano roll, but on a guitar neck, if you like. You've also got a line for effects and another one for adding strums. So let's have a listen to something created with the Riffer. So this plugin is based upon a PRS Artist custom guitar, a much more modern guitar than the other ones we've seen so far. It very much lends itself to heavy rock and kind of shredding, but could also be used for other types of music, has some really nice clean tones as well. But I've put together kind of a pseudo heavy rock kind of thing. There's not much shredding in this, but you'll get an idea of the sound of the guitar regardless. It's unapologetically over the top, this song, but let me know if I went too far on the tom-toms. Yes, a much more modern sounding guitar. And talking about modern things, a modern way of writing guitar music down is tablature, of course. And Ample Sound have given us a way to import tablature files. You can actually get hold of tablature files and you can import them here into the tab feature of all of these guitars that we're looking at today. So let's have a quick listen to some tablature on this artist, or this PRS artist custom guitar. So the last plugin that we're looking at today is based upon the ESP Eclipse guitar. This is another guitar which really lends itself to some very hard-hitting rock. However, when I wrote this piece of music late last night, I was exhausted and I went for more of a kind of a ballad. Odd, really, but well, you'll get a good idea of how the guitar sounds from this anyway. So I used a couple of different sounds in there, a couple of very different sounding guitars, and I used different amps. As we saw earlier, there's lots of different amps and cabinets to choose from, but also you can add different effects. And there's a few very useful effects included in the version 3 of the plugins across the board, not just on the electric guitars, on the acoustics, on the bass, etc. So they've included for you a compressor here, nice and simple and easy to use, your usual compressor controls, an EQ there, an echo, which is more like a delay, I would say, or some people call it an echo, and also a reverb or reverb, as I've been told to say on many occasions. Old habits die hard. So that's it for all of the plugins today. Let's move on to how you enter this competition. So there's only one thing you have to do to enter the draw to win one of these licenses. Just follow the link in the description down below and subscribe to my newsletter. Then in about a couple of weeks' time, I will be doing a live video where I will pick the 3 winners. Now you don't have to subscribe to this channel to enter, but it may be helpful so that you see notifications about the live show where I will announce the winners. Now I'd love to hear which of these guitars was your favorite, so let me know in the comments down below. Now if you did like this video, make sure you hit the like button. If you didn't like this video, hit the dislike button twice, of course. And if you do like this kind of content, all about home recording, DAWs, plugin reviews, gear reviews, that kind of thing, then make sure you subscribe and ring the bell on YouTube so that you get notified about my future videos.